Putin was to announce a supposed victory in the war against Ukraine on February 24, 2025, the anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion, according to the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Russian propagandists will also promote the narrative of Russia's supposed triumph over NATO. The Kremlin has already instructed the intelligence agencies to advance these messages.
One of the key objectives of the new Kremlin propaganda manuals is to cover up Russia's status as an isolated aggressor and war criminal in the civilized world, with the cloak of being the supposedly constructive side of the conflict, ready for a peaceful settlement. From a publication by the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine on Telegram.
All of this is propaganda rhetoric, analysts explain. It has no relations to reality. The Kremlin seeks to destabilize the situation in Ukraine and Europe, as well as discredit Kyiv before its partners.
Russian special services are entering an active stage of information operations against Ukraine and Europe. The main objective is to promote Euroscepticism, support politicians who will question the current EU structure, unbalance Europe to refuse to support Ukraine, and change the current EU course. Andriy Kovalenko, head of the National Security and Defense Council's Center for Countering Disinformation, in a Telegram post.
Putin does not want the war to end. Moreover, it's necessary for him. For the Putin regime, it's a tool to control society and maintain power. The only acceptable scenario for the aggressor country is the complete destruction of Ukraine.
If today the Russian president gives up the aggression, will stop the fighting, I say hypothetically. Of course, it cannot be so, but nevertheless, he has a huge number of problems within Russia, and therefore, of course, it is not in his interest to end the war, certainly not at all.
The quick solutions often mentioned by the Trump administration do not imply a fair end to the war between Russia and Ukraine, experts believe.
The only condition for a quick solution is to have Yalta-type division of the world and dismemberment of Ukraine. Would Ukraine accept it? No. Should the free world accept it? No. Who is now embodying the free world? That's a good question. That's a question that every European country should ask itself.
Russia is not interested in peace negotiations or ending the war against Ukraine. This conclusion was made by the UK Foreign Secretary after listening to Minister of Foreign Affairs Lavrov's speech at closed G20 diplomats meeting in South Africa.
We have not got anywhere near a negotiated settlement. And I have to say, when I listen to what the Russians, I don't see an appetite to really get to that peace. We look forward to speaking to President Trump more about this. We're very, very clear. There must be a role for Ukraine. It must be at the heart of these negotiations. Of course they want peace, but they will need security guarantees.
In the coming days, the leaders of the United Kingdom and France will travel to the United States for talks with President Trump. The main topic of discussion will be security guarantees for Ukraine.
What I'm going to say to him is, you cannot be weak in the face of Vladimir Putin. It's not you, it's not what you're made of, it's not in your interests. How can you be credible in the face of China if you're weak in the face of Putin?
The France and Britain tandem could become a driving force for bold discussions on Europe's defense initiatives and communication with the Trump administration, analysts believe. After the Bundestag elections, Berlin may also join London and Paris in this effort. Reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Nikita Skoblikov, UATV News.
Europe must be an essential party in potential peace talks on ending Russia's war against Ukraine. All participants in the meeting of foreign ministers in Paris have affirmed this. This position was formalized in a joint statement.
Continued cooperation with US administration is an important topic of our discussions. There is no better guarantee for the security of our continent than close transatlantic cooperations. But Europe should do more and more for its own defense, both for the sake of the alliance and for our own sakes. I truly believe that we can work together with the United States towards mutually beneficial rules of dialogue in regard to both security policy and trade policy. A strong Europe equals a strong United States of America and the transatlantic alliance.
Nothing can be decided about Ukraine without Ukraine, and nothing can be decided about Europe's security without Europe. Russia's attack on Ukraine clearly impacts Europe's security.
This statement comes in response to recent actions by Donald Trump. On February 12, the US president held a phone conversation with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. Trump later described the discussion as lengthy and very productive. Following this, he also spoke by phone with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
The most important thing is to ensure that Putin's plan does not unfold as he intends. He wants to do everything to ensure that he has bilateral negotiations, he and the United States of America. We simply cannot accept any agreements without our participation as an independent country.
Ukraine continues to demand effective security guarantees. As Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga pointed out, Ukraine has already seen multiple failed agreements, including the 1994 Budapest Memorandum, the 2008 Bucharest Summit commitments and the Minsk agreements. All of these documents, once signed with the involvement of international leaders, failed to prevent Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
And of course, we will focus on the issues, how to raise the price for Russia to continue this brutal aggression against Ukraine. And I would like to remind that on the 24th of February, we will mark 30 years of this brutal Russian aggression against Ukraine. And it's not only about against Ukraine, it's against our common values. It's about world order, against world order based on international law and the principles of UN Charter.
Paris shares this perspective. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot stated on his social media platform that the ceasefire agreement brokered between Kyiv and Moscow in 2015 turned out to be nothing more than an empty promise violated by the Kremlin.
10 years ago, the Minsk II agreement was signed, establishing a ceasefire in Ukraine. It was subsequently repeatedly violated and did not deter Russia from invading Ukraine in 2022. We must do more and better in order to sustainably repel the threat and ensure peace. Jean-Noël Barrot, Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of France, on social network X.
Germany is also pushing for European leaders to be involved in any peace negotiations. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius emphasized that Europe's security is ultimately its own responsibility.
I have no doubt that Europe must be part of the negotiations, and I believe this is very easy to understand, especially if, as has been said, we want to play a central or leading role in establishing a peace order. Moreover, whatever order emerges, along with the peacekeeping efforts that follow, it is self-evident that Europe will have to live with the consequences directly. That is why we must be involved in the negotiations.
According to the U.S. State Department's website, the U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Kate Kellogg, has traveled to Europe. As he has previously stated himself, his visit aims to advance President Trump's vision of achieving peace through strength in Ukraine and safeguarding U.S. national security interests. Reported by Serhiy Kulas, Larissa Petruk, UATV News.